I know you're thinking, how can an electric scooter possibly be the coolest thing that BMW has on sale today? Well, if you like interesting engineering and quirky design, I think you might just agree with me because this is the closest thing to a concept vehicle that I have either driven or ridden ever. This is Out Motorsports. My name is Tyler. Let's go for a ride.
So before we get going, let's talk about what the BMW CE02 actually is. I called this a scooter, but honestly, BMW would probably be a little bit offended that I called it that. They're focusing more on the electric urban mobility market, so think of this as an electric Honda Grom competitor. The most interesting thing of all, though, is the powertrain. Even though it is not an internal combustion powertrain, the electric motor in this is actually just an alternator from a BMW 3 Series or an X5. It is a 48 volt alternator that they've reversed to send power to the rear wheels. Interestingly enough, BMW's alternator makes 15 horsepower and 40 foot-pounds of torque. It has two 48 volt batteries hidden right there underneath the seat, and that gives it up to 50 miles of range depending on how you use it. It'll go 60 miles an hour, but you won't get 50 miles of range going that fast. You'll probably get closer to 35. However, the fact that it goes 60 makes it very usable. And even though it's a small scooter-like bike, doesn't mean they've skimped on quality. There's a lot of high-quality things here that you still expect from BMW. This doesn't have a clutch, obviously, because it's just an electric powertrain. So what you see here are both brakes, and when you come out into the front here, they're adjustable depending on how big your hands are to make it more comfortable for you. And they also have braided stainless steel brake lines, something that you really don't ever see in this category. So even though this kind of looks like a fun little toy, and it is fun, it doesn't mean they've skimped on quality at all. And that's a good thing to know because the MSRP starts around $7,500, and by the time you add on this package and the quick charger, out the door at the dealership, it's closer to $9,000. You see these passenger grab handles, they have two purposes really. You can use them for grab handles if you're a passenger, or BMW sells some accessory kits for this, which you might want to consider buying if you do wind up buying this, because there's not actually any built-in storage. So if you want to charge this, which is something that we'll get to later, you can't actually bring the charger with you. There's no compartment down here, there's nothing really here. So if you're going somewhere and you think that you're going to need to charge, then you'll probably want to get some sort of accessory luggage. There are two different types of chargers that you can get for this bike. You can get the standard charger with the standard package, which is that $7,500 MSRP. This, however, is the Highline package, and it comes with the quick charger. The quick charger will charge the bike in about 3 hours. The standard charger takes a little bit closer to 4. BMW quotes 3.5 hours. So the charging difference really isn't anything crazy. The charging speed isn't really anything crazy. And it doesn't really matter anyway, because this charger is essentially just a battery tender. You can't plug it into an Electrify America plug or any of your standard electric car public charging stations. You just plug it into your wall outlet. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, because it means if you live in an apartment or in the city, this bike is small enough and light enough that you can get it in some awkward or tight situations, especially if you're in a parking garage and you live in the city. The charging port is right here. It twists off. While we're down on this side, you'll notice the single-sided swing arm. It is belt-driven, which is a throwback to certain middleweight and entry-level motorcycles from BMW in the early and mid-2000s. They did this belt-driven design, and it's mainly for smoothness and noise. It's more refined feeling than a chain. And looking at the rest of the controls real quick, you can use the BMW Connected app with this phone holder to get a little bit more information, but basically you just have your miles to empty, or what do you have left of your charge, and your speed here, as well as what drive mode you're in. This has 3 drive modes: flow, which is for the city with a little bit of regen; surf, which is essentially the same throttle response as the city mode, but no regen; and then the upgraded Highline package gets this flash mode, which is sharper throttle response and no brake regen. It also, interestingly, has a reverse. So you press and hold this button and twist the throttle, and you walk backwards. It has a reverse gear. Something like that is the benefits of having an electric motor, is you don't have to throw in an actual additional reverse gear. This alternator just reverses, essentially. So enough of my ramblings. Let's get going out on the road with this thing and see how it rides. Okay, setting off on the CE02. I didn't mention it before, but this has keyless go, so it's already on right now. But if you wanted to start from scratch, press the power button, hold the brake, make sure the kickstand is up because it won't go anywhere with the kickstand down as a safety measure, and you press what would be the traditional start button. You see it says ready, and we are ready. So just twist the throttle and go, no clutch. Immediately we'll do a little bit of a U-turn here because that's what this is all about, right? A full lock U-turn, just about. I'm not that good. And right off the bat, it's just easy. You probably noticed before the seat height is very low and approachable. It's 29-inch seat height, and it's a very thin and low seat. So basically anybody of any height can flat foot this. It's under 300 pounds, 289 pounds, I believe. And all that weight is down low because of the battery and the alternator. So it's really not intimidating at all. So we're immediately up to 40 miles an hour here. And the first thing that you notice if you're coming from something like a full-size motorcycle is just how these small wheels and small tires are very darty, but that doesn't mean that this is unstable at speed. It actually strikes a very good balance between high-speed stability, which is not even necessarily what it's designed for, and also low-speed handling and just being able to dart around like this. So we're going to do a bit of a suburban route here. I live about 20 minutes from DC, and if I wanted to ride this there from my house, I would probably get into the city and then need to recharge, which isn't necessarily a commentary on the battery. It's just that this is really not a long distance sort of motorcycle. While we're stopped, there's a couple more things I didn't mention. It does have heated grips, and if you notice these brake reservoirs, they are also high quality. A lot of bikes you get plastic brake reservoirs, and these are like metal, high quality, part shared from other BMW brake reservoirs. And even when you're riding it, you don't feel like you're on something small and inconsequential. Like, yes, it's very light and easy to flick around and ride around, but it doesn't feel cheap. It feels solid. It feels of quality. And you'll notice I came immediately out on this quicker 4-lane road, and while the posted speed limit on this is anywhere between like 35 and 45, I immediately came here to prove that this will keep up with Northern Virginia, Washington, D.C. traffic, no problem. You don't really ever feel, at least up to roads like this, you don't ever feel like you're struggling to keep up with traffic. The electric motor has instant torque, and that torque figure is really what dominates the riding experience. This is full throttle now, and you can see we can pass people just fine. And you get up to over 60 miles an hour. It'll do 62. But when you start to go uphill, the speed decreases a little bit. You hear the regen, it almost, I don't know if you're going to be able to pick up on the regen, but in person, it almost sounds like a little Jetsons car. If you like go back and watch the Jetsons, how they had their little spaceships like hovering around, it sounds almost exactly like that. Riding this thing really does make you feel like you're in like the future or a Tron movie or something. It's such a unique experience, and I was so quick to judge this as just like a little cheap scooter, even though it's not cheap at all. But in typical BMW fashion, they've proven me wrong. I did a little bit of a social experiment with this. So around my area, we have the equivalent to cars and coffees, but they're called Bikes and Breakfasts. And I just parked this next to like Harleys and BMW GSs and all things that were traditional internal combustion, full-sized motorcycles. And the thing that I noticed most of all was that people did a double take. They walked by it and just assumed that it was another off-brand scooter, and then they saw the BMW logo, they saw the roundel, they saw how it said BMW straight up on the front wheel, and they stopped and looked and asked what it was. And I think maybe that's what this industry has been waiting for. This industry has been waiting for a manufacturer like BMW with such a good reputation to build something like this. So I went down this road because it'll showcase a bit of its high-speed stability through corners. And like I said before, it doesn't fall apart at high speeds. The suspension is composed and it's not wallowy, it's not too stiff. The seat is a little bit stiff over some of the bumpiest bumps, and if you were to, well, if the battery would go long enough that you could really take it long distance, the seat might start to be uncomfortable. But for short spurts, and to even put a passenger on the back, the seat is incredibly useful. Dipping it in here, those little front wheels make it respond, and even when you have it leaned over, the suspension doesn't scare you. It's as refined and well-tuned as I think just about any scooter can be. Whoever had this before me leaned it over far enough that they scraped the pegs, and I won't do that. But proof that it's possible. The fact that this is driven by an alternator isn't just a lazy or cost-cutting engineering move. The fact that, think about how many revolutions a car alternator does over the course of its life. And also think about, for the most part, how reliable they are over that course of time. You generally don't ever have to replace a car alternator up until 100,000 miles. And this is sourced from their alternator manufacturer Valeo, which sources most alternators in the automotive world. It's either them or Bosch for the most part. So this, because it's used in so many situations, and in most situations it's not liquid cooled, this didn't need to be liquid cooled. Everything on this scooter or bike is air cooled. Batteries are air cooled, the drive motor is air cooled, and that just keeps things simple and it keeps things light. This is, in my head, almost like the electric version of BMW's oil-cooled or airhead boxer engines. It's just as simple as it can be, but it's also packed with interesting, quirky little engineering features. It's, if you are into German engineering and German vehicles, this is such a satisfying thing to learn about and to get to know, just because it's weird and interesting, but also refreshingly simple in a lot of ways. For the most part, this can do it all other than long stints on the highway. You can go 60 miles an hour if you need to, and to keep up with traffic. If you live in a place where lane splitting or lane filtering is legal, or if you do it anyway and you're not supposed to, this is nice and skinny and not top heavy, has a really low center of gravity thanks to the battery and the drive motor. At night it has an LED headlight, so it even has very good lighting. There are still full-size motorcycles that don't have LED headlights, that are still running halogens. So everything that you get in this functions like a full-sized motorcycle, and it has full-size motorcycle parts, but it's little and it can zip around. Going back to being at Bikes and Breakfast and talking to other motorcyclists and just people that were passing by and looking at it, the motorcyclists all thought that this would be something perfect to get their significant other into motorcycling. And even the families that just came through that aren't necessarily on motorcycles, you would see like husbands talking to their wife with a kid in the stroller, saying like, oh, like maybe I can get this to bop around the city and to run errands. And it makes motorcycling approachable. The scary aspect of getting a full internal combustion motorcycle with gears and a clutch, and it kind of erases all that, and it's badged mixed with the fact that it's so easy to ride and the fact that it's electric really breaks down the barriers of entry for motorcycling, and it seems to cross those barriers. This engineering, the badge, its quirky design has really garnered a lot of interest from people who wouldn't be interested in motorcycles otherwise. So for that reason, I think this did and does exactly what BMW wanted it to do. All of the things that you would use this for on a daily basis, I think BMW really hit the mark. So, as always, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. If you want to come join us in person at any in-person events, please go to outmotorsports.com, where we hold road rallies and autocrosses and track crosses where you can come out in your own car, hang out with a bunch of like-minded, lovely individuals, and have some fun in person. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.